Hello, and welcome out to another special episode. This is the prototype, and instead of doing a roundup review show on sort of everything that we've had coming in, wanted to sort of focus on all of the games that we've had for review that have come in over the last few weeks that we've been off on our summer hiatus. And I thought, you know what, since it's so many games that we have, we may as well just sort of put them all into like a prototype special thing. Think of it sort of like a precursor to when we're going to be covering all of the Gamescom type stuff coming up, and which is surprisingly coming up pretty fast. But yeah, I've had a few games to review myself that I wanted to make sure that I got time to talk about here. I've also going to be taking about a week or so, maybe a week or 2 weeks away from pretty much all duties on the podcast, as my mom is getting knee replacement surgery, and she lives alone. She's going to need somebody there to sort of help out with the cat and check on her and make sure things are going well. So I'm sort of on, I guess, babysitting duty for the next week or so. And I wanted to make sure that we had a show that would come out in between there. We've got some other stuff planned, and I'll mention that at the end of the show as to what is already scheduled to come out while I'm completely on my break. I will have basically emergency comms running in case like the website breaks or something's broken, or we have like something very important breaking news that we have to break into. But other than that, I'm basically stepping away from everything, letting everything go just completely automated. So I've got a few things in here, and I'm not sure the exact order because there's a few that I'm just, as of this recording, finishing up with right now. But we'll get to the reviews, come back at the end. There's actually some pretty neat stuff here. And then we'll sort of just talk about what's upcoming we're now sort of right in the very smack dab middle of our summer break. And we've got some interesting things coming in the horizon. So yeah, let's check out the reviews. I'll be back with just the closing of the show right here on thisweekingeek.net. Our friends over at Tripwire Interactive sent a review copy of Killing Floor 3 for Steam for us to check out. Now, this was provided free, unbiased review, all that stuff. And I can say this is my first experience with the franchise. I had heard plenty of things about it before, but never had a chance to really, jump in and I wasn't a big PC gamer when the other ones had come out. I'd sort of been a lapsed PC gamer, but now I had a chance. Okay, let's see. I've got a decent enough computer. Let's jump in and see what we've got going for us. It is an online only game. It is basically co-op. There, it's best played with multiple people. Obviously, you are constantly going into zones to kill as many bad guys. I don't want to spoil anything, but basically you're killing a bunch of bad guys. You are racking up the money for the jobs that you're doing. You're getting upgrades, surviving waves, and moving on to the next, all the while having a almost Doom-like cyberpunk sort of aesthetic to it, and just the look and feel. Music is great. Visuals are good. I did have to tweak a lot of my visual settings. I had to bring it down to 1080p, even though I've got a 3080 Ti with modern SSDs and tons of RAM. Like, I should on paper have been able to max this thing out, but it could use some tweaking, that's for sure, when it comes to some of the frame rate hitching and that, which is kind of par for the course, it looks like, unfortunately, on PC lately. But that being said, it's constantly getting patches. There's day one patches and stuff coming out, so there's not really going to be any issues beyond a little bit of growing pains when it comes to this. Swapping between the keyboard mouse setup and controller is on the fly and easy. I will say this plays a lot better, at least when I'm playing it on PC here, with mouse and keyboard. I found no matter how much I tried to alter and tweak the controls, that the aiming with analog sticks for some reason is super sensitive and sort of like it is not well tuned for controller. It really just isn't. And it's sad that I got to say that, but it feels kind of real bad I'm using an official Xbox controller. I then switched to 8-bit do. It doesn't matter what controllers and what settings you are. It just does not feel good when you're using a controller. Conversely, using mouse and keyboard obviously felt right at home, and it was tight and concise, and I had no issues. So I'm wondering what can be done, maybe down the line. Maybe there's more settings, or maybe there's something that can be ironed out, because it just felt so loosey-goosey. It felt like you're constantly like moving too much too quickly with the sensitivity, and no matter what I changed, I couldn't change it. Taking that out of account and going with mouse and keyboard, I had a really good experience with it. It has a pretty straightforward tutorial style opening where it teaches you everything on the fly. You're up and running within about 20 minutes or so, which is good. The actual system requirements are not too crazy on PC. Just know that you will have to do some tweaking to make sure that it runs at a stable frame rate and without any like major hitching for you. That will get patches and updates as you go along, so always make sure you keep up to date with the newest version of the game. I had a good experience. It is best obviously played online with co-op drop-in with tons of people. If you're into this style of aesthetic of a game, I think you'll have a good time. It's really solid, and it makes me want to go back and probably play the other ones at some point. So I'd say good job, worth checking out. A good summer game to shoot up some stuff, stay cool inside, and avoid the heat outside, that's for sure. Our friends over at Aspire sent a review copy of Dungeons & Dragons Neverwinter Nights 2 Enhanced Edition for review on the Switch. I played this on the Switch 2, and I can say this. It is enhanced, that's for sure, from what I remember of the original. It took a little bit of getting used to, simply because I still don't think that some of the PC controls that were, present in this and the previous games done in this style translate very well to console. Even on the Switch, it got to the point where, at least initially, I was having issues, not just fighting the camera, which has been improved, I can say that, but some of the controls and some of the actions that you are required to do and take aren't actually explained in the game, or they're buried in multiple menus of deep, and it's just, the controls are not intuitive for even in portable mode or hooked up to a TV with a pro controller. Once you figure out the wonky controls, the game ends up being significantly more fun. And it's a faithful, port. It has all the DLC and expansions from, the past included here. What they've done as well is they have increased the frame rate to make it a little smoother. The camera controls are better, but again, they're not the greatest. It's just the nature of the design of the game. Mechanics have probably been tuned up in the background. I didn't notice anything majorly different. The textures, it does look better. And it says full controller support. It does. Full controller support, but the UI and design is not really conducive to not having a mouse and keyboard where it was intended initially. It says, I kept going, scratching my head. It says controller specific UI. It's there, but where you're going to find issues with this game, if anything, is the controls. It just does not feel smooth and natural to use it with a controller. If you're playing this on a PC, though, like if you're playing, let's say you get it on Steam or something at the Enhanced Edition, I think you'll have a much better experience with a proper mouse and keyboard. I didn't check to see if I could use a mouse and keyboard with the Switch version, but it might make it better. Because, beyond that, it's still a very fun game. It's compelling, has a good story. It's everything that you remember or had heard about, just polished up, a little nicer. I personally think this could have done with, maybe in the future, a full remake, but with a brand new, more modern engine for it. But as it stands, it's still a solid game. If a little wonky at first, once you get used to the controls, I think you'll have a really good time with it. Pac-Man is back, or should I say Puck-Man, or Puck. Puck is back. Pac-Man is back. Pac-Man is back. That's right. Shadow Labyrinth from our friends over at Namco Bandai was sent over for a review on Switch 2. I played it on Switch 2. The game itself was a Switch 1 game sent to me, and then there was an upgrade code to upgrade it, which as of this time of recording, I don't know if that's going to change. I saw that the upgrade was free to download, even without the code I was sent for the upgrade on the Nintendo Switch 2 store online. As far as what the improvements are, it's obviously going to be resolution slightly, and then maybe some particle effects and frame rate. But I can say this, for those that were wondering about it, if you remember, as part of that, like, was it the PlayStation? It was that, or is it, no, it wasn't the PlayStation. It was that was it the Amazon show that was all like the game stuff. I forget the name of it now. It unfortunately didn't do well, but it had some interesting mini episodes of shows, and this is sort of where it was revealed in it. We have a Metroidvania style game with Pac-Man in the future, and it's a interesting new take on the genre and the character and what they can move forward with in the future with it. Sort of a bit of a love letter to some of the classic Pac-Man gameplay, but also more modern stuff added. Visually, it has an interesting artistic look that I like. Audio-wise, is a little more minimalistic than I was expecting, but it's still entertaining and suits it very well. Controls, I think the controls are pretty tight. There's some floatiness to it, but you get used to it because there's some gravity style things where you're hopping between surfaces that you can roll along and move around, and you can sort of aim your falls and your jumps so that you can use the inertia to move as you need to, and that works quite well. There are some parts that are kind of baffling to me in the gameplay design. There isn't really like a central hub where if you die you move back to. You sort of just move to your last save point, so you're sort of exploring the labyrinth, but there isn't like a home base. And there isn't the features that you've come to expect in Metroidvania or like roguelike ones where you can build up your power and move back. And when you die, you lose everything from whatever it was at the last save, and you got to start over from where you were. Progression can be a bit of a chore unless this is a style of game that you really, really like, and I personally don't. So I'm coming at this as objectively as I can. There's a lot that I like in this game, and then there's a lot that makes me scratch my head, and I go, what? Why? But then you come around to the fact that it's not a full-priced game. It is cheaper than retail. It's going to vary depending on the country you're in, but it's less than a regular AAA game is budgeted at, so it can be forgiven some of that aspects. The other part is, for a Switch 2 game that is mostly 2D looking, there's some serious slowdown here. Anytime that you jump through like fog lights, any atmospheric fog, any like special lighting, the frame rate drops to like 20 frames per second or less, and it's actually quite unnerving. I had to like take breaks from it because I was actually getting a headache from the stuttering and from the shimmering effect that was happening, and there's no way to turn that off or change it. It's just a massive performance hit, and I was like, am I crazy? I had to look up other videos on YouTube, and people are encountering the same thing. For a game that has had an official upgrade to Switch 2, I'm very surprised at the performance. And again, it's not like everywhere. It's any time though that you go through fog, mist, like any atmospheric light that goes through like alpha effect, there's something about that. It just doesn't work right. And it shouldn't have these issues because it's not a very intensive game other than some settings that they might have cranked up for this. I haven't had a chance to go, because I don't have a Switch 1 anymore, to go back and see how it plays on Switch, if it's something that is just affected because there's some features that were enabled or not on the Switch 2. But that was kind of baffling to me. I figured this would be a buttery smooth gameplay, so it's not. And again, that's at the time of this recording. There could easily be some patches that they put out for it that fix that. It doesn't ultimately like crash the game or bring it down, but it really pulls you out of the immersion. And it was giving me headaches, which if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, you might take pause and take issue with it. So I can recommend this for fans of Pac-Man, and I can recommend this for people that like Metroidvania games, unless you are somebody who is very sensitive to shimmering and stuttering effects that happen with the frame rates like that. If that doesn't bother you at all, then I think there's a lot of fun to be had here, and you'd probably have a really good time with it. For those that are very sensitive or want their stuff to work, oh, it's got to work buttery smooth on a new system. If that's the case, you might want to take pause, reflect, check back in on it once maybe some patches have been made. But other than that, I do think there's a solid game here with solid bones, and it just could have used a little more TLC before release. Alex, the producer, here with just a quickie review. Our friends over at Koei Tecmo sent a review copy of Wild Hearts for the Switch 2, specifically Wild Hearts S. Now, because this is a port of a game that was out a little while ago, we're not doing like a full in-depth of every little feature and the game itself, because that has been reviewed plenty in the past. This is more of an impressions of the port and, what we're getting out of this. So we already know that it was visually a good-looking game, and it was in a specific style of game that you'll know when you see it. And I can say this, it has made the translation over onto the Switch 2 quite well, considering that it was something that I looked at going, how is this going to port? It's one of those games that looked like it would be probably too powerful, or at least early on, for it to come over without being a miracle port. And the more I've been using my Switch 2, the more I've realized that it can handle a lot more than I expected. And in this case, what we have here is a sort of complete version of a game that had been released on previous consoles, that's been refined and had updates and everything, and has now come over to a platform that can play it portably fairly well. There are frame rate issues depending on where you're playing. If you're docked or portable, you are going to encounter, it's not the smoothest game in the world. It's not the most graphically intensive game in the world. They have sort of struck a balance as best they can here. It still sounds good. It has a good aesthetic. If you like monster hunting type games, then you're going to have a pretty good time with it, I think. It's not the largest game on the system in terms of storage space, but you are probably going to want an external memory card, because you are going to run out of space pretty quickly if you start putting these AAA titles on. So I installed it. Didn't take too long to download. Boot time is pretty fast. Loading times are pretty speedy, better than I was expecting initially. And overall, the controls work quite well. It doesn't seem to have any major lag or anything. It takes a little bit to get into in my head. I'm not usually, this style of game is not usually like on the top tier of my list of things I love, but I could get into it as I went. It does have lush, vibrant environments, and it's a adequate and commendable effort to take a game that shouldn't by all means really work on a portable platform as well as it does, and it does. So if you've been looking for it, you've been holding out, if you're a big fan, it's worth picking up, double dipping. If you're somebody who's completely new to it, you know what? I say give it a try. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that, Wild Hearts S ends up being better than most people would expect, and might end up being sort of a sleeper hit. Well, this was a surprise. Not a surprise that it was good, but a surprise that it was fantastic. And what am I talking about? That's right. It is Ninja Gaiden Ragebound from Dotemu and the Game Kitchen. We received a review copy for us ahead of time on the PC on Steam. I had a chance to play it over the last little bit here, and it took me by surprise, because I played Ninja Gaiden 1 on the NES. My cousins had the trilogy on the Super Nintendo, and I was, without a Game Genie, I was never able to get any far. Even when I was falling into holes and things and dying, but I was always mesmerized by it. I don't think I ever beat it without a Game Genie, and I don't think my cousins I think they beat the trilogy one time on the SNES, but it was always an intriguing series to me. I would love the music, love the feel. It was just too hard for me. And then come the modern, iterations of them that came out on like Xbox and modern PlayStations and that, and they didn't hook me as well. The controls were a little wonk with the camera angles and that, but I understood why people loved them. And then I saw this, and I was like, oh, a retro style one from Dotemu and Game Kitchen. I'm like, this looks awesome. let's check it out. And lo and behold, not only is it awesome, it's amazing because it has all the accessibility features you see in a lot of modern games. So if you want, and you're having trouble, and like, I played it on normal for the most part, but if you want, you can turn on accessibility options to do things like not take damage, or not have knockback, or extend the amount of time that your powers are in use for, and you can do it on the fly. It doesn't affect your trophies. It doesn't, because when you're playing a single player game, it's able to cater to your individual wants and needs. And I found myself in some areas I was like, oh, I'll turn it down. Some areas I turned it up, and I loved that it had that ability. And you could still die, like on the easiest setting. If you make it like, what you would call like the simplest settings possible, you can still fall down holes and die. You can still, not be able to make it to the end. You could still fail at using your powers at the right time to do some of the more challenging things. So there's plenty of challenge regardless of where you set it at. It's just that it's at your fingertips, and that makes it really good. I didn't encounter any bugs when I was playing it whatsoever. Oh wait, well, yes and no. I did something that I probably shouldn't have done. And I was like, I opened up the pause menu at a time when I was about to die while using a power, and then I didn't die, and I should have died because the timer ran out, and I could go around the whole level without being hurt, but then basically the game froze and I had to exit it. And it wasn't a bug that was like encountered on its own. It was a sequence of events that I must have done on my own that just sort of went whoop, fucked with the memory. I don't think it would necessarily encounter that same issue if I tried to replicate it ever again. But, that being aside, I didn't encounter anything. It was buttery smooth. I was able to play it with like max settings on my computer without any issues, without any slowdowns. The audio is great. I did notice something happens, and I've noticed this lately with a bunch of other games. A lot of times it's 2D or 2D inspired games, where when a lot of things are happening on the screen, the music will still be fine, but all the sound effects start to sound like they're underwater and overcompressed, and I don't know why that is. And it doesn't just happen exclusively on PC, like when I'm playing it with PC with headphones or through the speakers. It happens on other consoles and that too. It might be something to do with an audio engine that a lot of these companies are using. I have no idea. It's just, that was an oddity, but beyond that, it would just correct itself when like less things were happening on screen. So it's got to be something with an audio engine thing. But beyond that, no issues. Buttery smooth gameplay. Controls are tight. Just the right length of game. I beat it in about 6.5 hours, just shy of 7, and that was with doing pretty much everything except one secret mission that I didn't get access to and I couldn't figure out how to. And then of course I wasn't able to get like S rank and everything, because when you beat the levels, getting all the collectibles, doing it in the right amount of time, doing it with the most damage, and with modifiers on from different pieces of equipment that you can equip, it can alter your score at the end, which gives you higher ranks and gives you trophies and all that stuff. And then there's, I think, probably some sort of secret ending, because there usually is with these games. I didn't have access to that because I didn't get to that part, but I did everything else. I would say I did about a 95% completion run of this in about 6 or 7 hours at a mixed difficulty setting. If I had been playing it completely at normal the whole time, you could have probably added 2 or 3 hours of me replaying missions to do that. If you had left everything at the easiest, it would have been probably a half hour to an hour less. But even though it's a fairly short experience, 6 hours is pretty good, especially when you can feel like you want to redo it again at a higher difficulty or change things, and you can get different costumes and whatnot. I had a great time with it. It's got a price tag of about $25 US. Depending on the store you're at, it's going to change, and whatever country you're in. Well worth the price, honestly. It's available on PC, Switch, PS5 for Xbox. You name it, it's available for it. It'll run like butter on pretty much everything out there. Lots of musical revisions on the original songs. There's little secret-y embedded things in the art in the background to make references to the game developers, publishers, as well as previous games in the franchise. It's just a fun, good experience, like a really solid game. I would highly recommend it to anybody, because even though the name can be daunting because it comes across as one of the hardest games in platforming in action history, it's not that bad here, especially when you can alter it. You want to make this ultra hard, you can make it ultra hard, have like crazy frustrating times playing it or streaming it with friends, or you can play it, you know, more casually and still get a really good time, you know, figuring out the controls and playing it at a more leisurely pace. It can be catered to how you want, and it doesn't diminish the quality and the fun that you have with it. Fully, highly recommend. It's one of my favorite games of the summer for sure. So if you haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, you should pick up Ninja Gaiden Ragebound.
Those magnificent bastards! Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that's going to do it for the show this week. And, well, for who knows how long, at least a couple of weeks, I think, until we're back with our first, like, current coverage that we're going to be doing, which will be the Gamescom stuff. As far as regular programming with the live show, we're looking at, I think, the first or second week of September before we're back fully from that. In the meantime, again, we'll probably have another review show covering some of the games that are coming out, because we're sort of hitting a bit of a lull right now. There's probably going to be like Nintendo Directs and things, maybe even this week, that we'll see pop up, but like all the major releases start to roll in, you know, at the end of the summer, basically. But in the meantime, we've got some movies I know coming my way from Paramount and a few other companies that we'll be checking out. So we'll have another review, you know, August roundup when it comes to the regular Turn of Treasure review show. I don't know, Birdman and Ken probably have some stuff that we want to include there. But as far as other programming on the site, later on this week, we have the new episode of Earth vs. Soup, The Maze from 1953. And then the following Monday, we will have a random access memory show on movies to get to know us, which is unexpected picks from various members of the TWIG crew, and just sort of give you a feel for our movie tastes, right? After that, we have that following week, the Earth vs. Soup episode 268, the Alpha Incident from 1978. After that, we will have a Future Imperfect on Total Recall, the 1990 and 2012 editions. That's something we recorded just before going on break, and it's going to be an interesting discussion, to say the least. We got plenty more like that coming up after. Birdman, I know, has some interviews that we're probably going to pop up. Those will be released sort of pretty much right after they're recorded, so those will come in between these at some point. We don't have a specific schedule for those, but for the most part, you're looking at content coming on Mondays in the regular slot with one of the things we pre-recorded. Thursdays has Earth vs. Soup, and then we'll have another review show or two before the end of the summer, usually putting those up probably on a Wednesday. Or if there's like a very specific embargo, they might come out on those days. But that is going to do it from all of us here at thisweekingeek.net. This is the prototype, and we'll be back probably closer to Gamescom right here on thisweekingeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.